I was browsing the YouTubes a few days ago and I stubbed my toe on a potato with a moustache and headphones, which suddenly began talking. On closer inspection it turned out it was none other than NephilimFree. Over the course of about a week I posted a few comments which disagreed with some points Nephilim had made in his Complexity Destroys Evolution video and waited patiently for them to be approved. These prompted several responses from Nephilim, all of which I disagreed with, dirty denialist that I am. Anyway, soon enough it was fingers and ears, disable comments and block me from his channel. Amazing. Having predicted this outcome, I saved the transcripts. The initial comment I responded to was Nephilim's assertion that complexity cannot arise naturally. I responded with what I thought was a clear example, embryonic development. Nephilim responded with an excellent fusillade of double-barreled bullshit asserting without evidence that DNA is a product of intelligence and that nature cannot produce information. I repeated that a natural process involving DNA resulted in his development. There is indeed a wealth of information on just how a single cell can become a fully operational talking potato. I personally recommend Walport's Principles of Development, though Neff, I have to warn you, it does contain science and citations. I then made a further point about a gain of information, giving the example of the bacteria evolving the ability to digest nylon. Because I'm such a bloody nice bloke, here are the actual studies so you can look them up yourself. Trademark move time. You're a denialist! No, Nephilim, I accept plenty of things, you know, like evidence. Speaking of which... No, I haven't. No, I haven't. No, it isn't. Yes, there is. And flat out no. Neff gets out his shotgun again with this payload of fail. Dawkins can't provide an example. Let me think about that. Give me 1 second here while I rummage around for... Oh, look, here it is. An entire book full of examples with references. Thanks, Richard. Also, here are some definitions of information. Biology isn't mentioned at all, because when discussing DNA, information is a metaphor, a word used to help us in visualising the process, something Neff doesn't seem to grasp, which will become very apparent later. I asked for clarification on how he believes nylon digestion is not the result of new information. I also take the opportunity to tell him to quit being a petty git, thus attaining the coveted moral high ground. Of course, I have since given this up in favour of comparing him to a talking potato, sue me. Nephilim chooses to ignore what I said about information in favour of his own bollocks definition, which he still fails to provide. Interesting, since he asked me to look it up. I'll ignore the bit about
technology higher than man's
and focus on the sciencey bits here. Apparently DNA defines every structure and process, and mutations do not produce information. At this point I understand where Neff is going wrong. Basic fundamental principles of biology. He also then accuses me of ignoring the definition of information. Projecting much? I take the opportunity to fill him in on some points he's evidently missed about DNA translation. Mutations change the DNA sequence. A change in sequence changes the amino acids that bind to each segment, which in turn alters the protein. It's the structure of these molecules that's what's important. Nothing here contains or carries information. It's just different structures lead to different chemical arrangements, leading to a different shape of... Oh, sod it, just watch this. How cool is this? See there, right there, specific amino acids attached to tRNA are strung together based on where the tRNA can bind to RNA strand. I'm not denying that this is complicated, but this definitely happens. Textbook stuff, Nephilim. This stuff is awesome, and you're really missing out. Which makes me cry when I read this. You have completely missed the point. Proteins are specified by molecular interactions. Not understanding this makes the baby Jesus wet himself. The adaptation of new proteins is precisely what evolution explains. In a last attempt, I tried to get this through to you. Molecular structure and chemical interactions control this whole process. But of course you won't let reason, logic and years of biological study stop you. Constantly repeating yourself doesn't make you right, Nephilim. And now he returns to his basic misunderstanding of metaphors, descriptive words that aid us in visualising the processes. There is no such bloody thing as bloody DNA linguistics law. There are promoter sequences, stop sequences, sure, but guess what? They work because of the DNA structure, not because anything is actually bloody reading them. And again with the bloody denialism. As Nephilim's head slowly inflates to Pixley Armageddon, brace yourselves for the liberal application of bullshit to your monitor. Statistics. Creationist statistics. Evolution is impossible, times impossible, times impossible, times impossible, times impossible, times... While I cleaned the stupid off my face, I reminded Nephilim to stop being a git, and pointed out that his statistics definitely don't take into account the fact that these molecular interactions are not random, but are in fact based on fucking chemistry. Beyond that, I really had lost all will to continue trying to teach the brick wall of Nephilim's intellect about GCSE level science. Instead, I tried a different approach. I asked him how he explained DNA replication, translation, and how his theory accounts for bacteria managing to digest nylon. I specified that I wanted more than God did it, because that's not an answer. Nephilim, how did God do it? I'll give you a moment for his reply to sink in. Because fuck a duck, Nephilim, this makes as much sense as Belgium eating its own face. Molecules can't produce information, you still haven't said what you think information is. Can't produce DNA or proteins, DNA and proteins are made of molecules. He then admits that nylon digestion is an adaptation. How do you think that occurred then? But of course, Nephilim doesn't need to see any evidence. But he does state it is overwhelming anyway. Grow some balls, Nephilim, and make your mind up. If you don't need evidence, don't talk about science. If you insist the evidence is there, show some of it. DNA by itself is evidence only of, guess what? DNA. I spend some time attempting to tell him this, and the standards of evidence that science demands. Of course, this is all pointless. Nephilim insists he has provided evidence. He has not. He has claimed I haven't answered any of his questions. He hasn't asked any. He has told me to present explanations. I have done so. He then repeats his worthless assumptions. I find it ironic that in a rant about language, grammar and intelligence, Nephilim has displayed 4 spelling errors and no intelligence whatsoever. Deny it 1,000,000 times, it changes nothing. Fingers in ears, comments blocked, banned from his channel. Nephilim, you are an intellectual coward, ignorant of basic biology, chemistry and a scientific method. You present nothing while denying every shred of evidence presented to you. You hypocritically project your own failures on those who criticise you. To those who have read his comments, I can only apologise for what you have been subjected to. I hope these kittens make up for it.